Welcome. I'm Tenesha L. The owner of WriterWorks University. So tonight we're just going to be talking about 3 things that you need for your cover with the wonderful and talented Bobby Nash, and he's going to introduce himself and everything, and I'm going to let him just take it away. I just wanted to pop in and say thank you for watching. I also want to remind everyone that if you haven't registered yet, you get to be in the room virtually live with our presenters when we do each of these mini talks if you go ahead and register. So AtlantaSelfPublishingConference.com, you can register, get signed up, and there's other little goodies and benefits that you get as well. So do try to do that as soon as possible. The sooner you register, the more stuff you get. And as a reminder, Atlanta Writers Club is our sponsor that's presenting the Atlanta Self-Publishing Conference. So by signing up, you do become a member. If you aren't one already, you pay those dues automatically when you pay your fee for registration. And it gives you 365 days of all the wonderful benefits and resources that are available as part of being an Atlanta Writers Club member. So beyond that, again, I'm here with WriterWorks University. We are doing a lot of the work as far as the copy for the website and getting all of the presenters and things like that together. So I just want to remind people that if you go to writerworksuniversity.com, there are free lessons that literally go step by step and walk you all the way from conceptualizing a book to actually putting it on the market if you're interested in self-publishing. So if you just want some free help, step-by-step, self-paced guidance, that's the place to be, writerworksuniversity.com. That being said, I'm going to turn it over to Bobby. It's all you, my friend.
Okay, well, thank you so much for having me here. I'm excited to do this. I'm looking forward to seeing everybody in person in April, so that should be a lot of fun. I'm Bobby Nash. I'm an author. I've been writing for longer than I care to admit. I've been published about 30 years now, I guess. Yeah.
But you're just a baby.
I was just a baby. Yes. Yeah. Not long after high school. It was 1992. Was the first published work I ever did. And then there were some lean years, but in 2001, and I sold my first professional comic, and then in 2004 I sold my first novel, and it's been pretty steady busy since 2004. So that's awesome. I write a lot of different things: comics, novels, audio. I've done a couple screenplays. I'll write just about anything. Yeah, if publisher says, "Can you write this?" The answer is almost always yes, sure. But I do enjoy writing a lot of serious work. I do a lot of crime fiction, as you can see behind me. The Snow, the Such a Night, Evil Ways. These are all, excuse me, crime thrillers or action thrillers, things like that. But I also dabble in some sci-fi, some horror, fantasy, whatever. So that's what I do. Sorry, it's a guaranteed fact that if you put me in front of a camera and hit record, I'm going to start coughing. I don't know why. Always happens. The course we're doing in April live is going to be about creating covers for your books. And tonight's presentation is going to be just a quick, because we've only got like 30 minutes, so we're going to do a quick intro to covers. So you guys can, this way you guys can think about some of this stuff and come into the conference either maybe with a cover design already started, or with questions from trying to do a cover. So tonight we're going to talk about 3 things you need for your book cover. And when I talk to people about covers, I realize that not everybody thinks of covers the same way. A lot of people, I'm going to use some visual aids here. A lot of people go, "Oh, that's a book cover." And while that's true, from the perspective of creating a book cover, this is a book cover. What we are doing when you're creating a cover for your books, you have to think of the front cover, the spine, and the back cover. Do you want them to be separate entities? What do you, or can you do a wraparound cover? There are multiple types. Like for this one, for instance, the front and cover are separate. It's a little hard to see small like this, but there is a design under it, which is the badge. because we don't want to leave the back cover, designless. Grabbed a couple of examples here. This is a great crime novel called Miami Heist. This is one of those where they did a wraparound cover. So as you can see, the image goes completely around. So and onto the spine as well. So these are the kind of things that you think about when you're coming up with the process of laying out your cover. So that's first thing. A lot of it depends on what art you have. Do you have an artist? Do you have a photographer? Do you want to do a wraparound, or do you want your covers to work together? Like we did this one, which is the front cover. The back cover is a completely different image, but it's clearly part of the same as the gun, and the wheel goes around to the back side, along with the, I know it's a little hard to see small, but the metallic coloring follows around. So there's a lot of branding that you can do design wise to carry around your book. So when you're deciding to do your covers, these are the kind of questions that you ask first. How do your front cover and your back cover work together? And that's actually our second part. I think I skipped ahead a little bit here. The first of the three things that you need for your book cover is your media. And by that, I mean, are you going to have a painted cover? Excuse me. Are you going to have a photo cover, an illustration cover, or just a design cover, or just something simple? All of these things work. If any of you have done your own covers and gone through and used the cover creator through KDP or any of those type of entities, sometimes they have plain, very simple design covers. But when you do a cover, there are options. Like I said, this was a photo. Sorry, this one's one glossy, so sorry, it reflects a little. You can do photos. This one that I showed earlier, that is also a photo, but it has been manipulated and pixelated, so it almost looks like a painting. You can do, this is a digital painting, and the badge is real, so it's a photo with digital manipulation. You can have a painted cover. When I talked earlier about design covers, this is a design cover. It's just got the little design here and the blood spatter. It's a little hard to see, sorry. But you can see we have the blood spatter under evil, and it comes down into a chalk outline, almost a blood outline of something. In this case, this story deals with a domestic terrorist, so it's the United States. Book one, called Evil Ways, was a body because it was a murder mystery. So, excuse me, those are some of your options. You can also have the option of doing something along the lines of comic book art or cartoon style art or anime art, depending on what your character, type of story you're telling. Here's another good example of a photo cover and another good one of a design cover with using the art. So when you're putting your cover ideas together, determining which type of media works best is going to go a long way. If you're doing a straight up horror story or a mystery thriller, a comic book art style cover might not fit the tone of the story you're telling. So you have to determine what works for the story you're telling. If you see the poster back here for the Snow books, Snow is an action heavy adventure thriller, PIs, a lot of car chases, things like that, a lot of actions and a lot of character driven bits. So the cover artist, Jeffrey Hayes, who did that, made it almost have a movie poster quality. that works for the kind of story I'm telling. That type of cover does not work as well for Evil Ways and Evil Intent because, oh, and there's Evil Ways too in the back with the body outline. So knowing what kind of story I'm doing makes me fit the art to that. So that's a determination you would make fairly early on of what works. Don't be afraid to experiment. If you think a photo cover works, try it. It may work, it may not work. When the Deadly Games book, which I held up a moment ago with the photo cover, that was not my original intent for the cover. The original intent of this cover was to, which as you can see here is a close-up of the gun, and he's holding a wheel and there's blood on it. The original intent was to shoot this at a downward angle. So we would see the gun and the wheel, but we would be shooting down, and we'd see his feet and there'd be a big pool of blood, and the guy would be reflected in it. That was the original plan. And it would have made a great cover until we started shooting it. And then it didn't look so good. It didn't work. It left a lot of blank area on the sides of the page. So the cover did not look like a cover. So that's where some experimentation went into, and that's where we came up with the idea of doing the closer in, which filled more of the cover, made the gun and the wheel a little more prominent. And I think that actually made for a better cover because there's not all this dead space to worry about. So, excuse me. So that's where sometimes what you see in your head doesn't always work. But when you try to come up with that up front of what kind of cover works, then you can go and start that. And then you have to decide, do you want that to be a wraparound cover, front and cover separate? These are different things that you'll start thinking of in terms of the cover design early. And even if you're not doing the cover yourself and you're hiring an artist, these are still good details to know to discuss with that artist. Here's what I'm thinking. I think we need this kind of cover. And then you and the artist can work together to determine the type of cover that you're going to do. And I'll have more and bigger examples that are easier to see in person when we're doing this stuff. We can pass around. I may bring some of the covers that are on poster boards behind me and talk through how we came up with what we did there. So that's your first thing, is deciding what type of cover you need. When you know what kind of book if you're writing a romance novel, a design cover might be good with different colors, or a good close-up or a good photo shot of if you've ever seen the poster for a Nicholas Sparks movie, it's usually a couple in an embrace of some kind. Those kind of covers work for that. You probably wouldn't want a comic book cover for a romance novel, but a painted cover, the Harlequin romances went for decades doing painted romance covers. So knowing what your genre is will help, and what story you're telling will help you decide what the best thing is for that. So hopefully that didn't ramble too much. I tend to ramble and I talk with my hands, so I'm going to apologize up front. In addition to the image that's going to be on your front and back cover, very important is to know your copy. That's your title. Do you have your font? How big do you want your title to be? Do you want a subheading, or do you want from the author of above it, or do you want like I'll go back to Deadly Games, it says from the author of Evil Ways above it, and then we had the title, and then a novel by Bobby Nash, and then a little tagline here at the bottom. Whereas if you look at Michael Connelly, and Michael Connelly being a big New York Times bestseller, a lot of times he being, people are following him after what, 29 of these Harry Bosch novels. So his name is quite large, same size as the title, because he is as much a draw as the title is. And then of course here there's it's a Harry Bosch and Renee Ballard novel, and then there's a little blurb here at the bottom, and there's a thing at the top, #1 New York Times bestselling author. Those are things that you have to plan into your design, because you don't want to put those over the art. You don't want to cover up important pieces of the art. Same is true when you're doing your back cover copy. If you look at this same one while we've got it up, the back cover copy, again, it's a wrap around cover. The back cover copy doesn't cover any of the photo. They leave this part open because it ties in with your cover. And then all of the cover copy, which in this one is all blurbs, the actual copy about what the book's about on the inside, because they have a dust jacket. Whereas we did something similar on the back of Deadly Games. We didn't cover up the image at the bottom. We filled it all up here. And then I'll show you one more example. Whereas Evil Intent, we filled up the back. There is a very light red image under it, but it's so light that it doesn't hurt the cover copy. The one thing I did learn after doing this, I should have squared that off. It looks weird, jagged on the edges. I would have justified it. Things you live and you learn, right? But knowing what you're going to do is very important up front. Big change from doing the Deadly Games. I made my name much larger here, and it says a novel by. Title, Evil Intent. Above it here is a little tagline, a little tease like this time, evil strikes at home. And then because this is part of a series, the series information is here. So knowing all of this is here, we designed this cover purposefully knowing we would only be using this small space here, and then the blood splatter, which is also on book 1, which you can see behind me there, to keep that going. That allows us to brand these books. When you see Evil Ways and Evil Intent side by side, it is clear they are part of a series because we have carried over that branding. So, but knowing that, I wouldn't try to do a photo cover just for this small space. Whereas I'm currently working on the sequel to Deadly Games, and it will carry on with a photo cover as well, which will take more space. So knowing the amount of copy you're going to have, what size you're going to have your title, those things will come in handy with helping you design the art or the photo or whatever. Working with on the snow books with Jeffrey, Jeffrey knows where to put those. I give him the title up front. He knows where to put those so they all fit. It's easily readable, and it looks good on the shelf. Because when copy is very important. When I first started, we were taught that you need to design your cover's copy so it can be read across the bookstore. You walk into the bookstore, you see a book way back on the shelf, and Evil Ways jumps out at you because it's such a powerful block letter. Obviously, that's not the only way books are sold today. But you have to, when you're designing your covers, shrink it down to an inch tall. You have to be able to read it at an inch tall because that's how we're selling them on Amazon and Books A Million and Barnes and Noble, et cetera, et cetera. People have to be able to tell what your cover is about at an inch tall. So shrinking it down is a great indicator of, do you have the right fonts? Sometimes very flowery fonts. with lots of curly cues or old English. They look good until you shrink them down, and it's hard to read the title. So those are things to plan as part of your overall design. And that is actually the third thing in our list of 3 things you need for your book cover is design work. How does it all come together? How do you make, because the image, the cover, the title, the copy, all of that has to work together to, not only for one design for this book. If you're doing a series, you have to kind of set up your branding so that there's going to be things that follow along from book to book to book. Like with Evil Ways and Evil Intent, we mentioned the branding of the blood spatter pattern. With this series here, the Sheriff Meyer series, as you can tell, if you see these 2 side by side, they're part of the series because there is a design element that will carry from book to book to book. And so, but we knew going in with book 1 that this was going to be a series. And so we started our cover design with that in mind. So that when you see me at a convention or you see me at a book signing and these books are on my table, you immediately know that these are part of a series. And so those are some of the things you have to plan in your design. So those are the 3 basic things. And before I just keep rambling on and on, does anyone have any questions?
I do, Bobby.
Oh, okay.
Let me flip my sheet of note paper back over. Well, one thing, how did you get your poster covers on the walls made?
That was actually easy. I went to